Disappointment. A notion that I, my previous teachers in school, my parents, and my therapist are all entirely too familiar with. When it comes to the hellscape that is modern cinema, disappointment is its own palpable, horrifying, and dopamine-shredding force that can strike when you least expect it. Sure, sometimes audience expectations are to blame, like when the world collectively decided to ignore everything The Matrix Resurrections had to say because there wasn't enough karate in it.
No joke.
But the fact of the matter is that most of the time you can't lay everything on the people who are actually buying your tickets.
Freeman, 713. I am a sentinel.
Sometimes you gotta own up and just admit that you took the most promising elements imaginable and you let your own insufferable style, your own hubris, your own morbid sense of self-importance, and you force-fed it into your script until it choked and was ready to burst. Disrespecting the IPs that formed generations and made the world a more promising place into something sick and sadistic and riddled with contempt. Leaving behind grimoire-length tomes of creative excrement stuck like a festering thorn in the canon of some of our best stories forever. Like, try as you will to explain it, excuse it, reinforce it, or ignore it, this really happened, guys. Luke, that hopeful, innocent farm boy who captured our hearts, really drank matcha titty milk.
And then pulled the fucking trigger.
Batman really cried about his mommy. Superman Returns really didn't have Superman punch a single fucking person. Turns out Tim Burton shouldn't have directed a version of Planet of the Apes. Turns out I'm pretty sure we should have just done one Matrix movie, just left it at that, just had that monolith of fucking science fiction forever. Turns out Force Awakens sucked, turns out Last Jedi sucked, turns out Rise of Skywalker sucked, turns out Solo sucks, turns out Mandalorian started to suck, turns out Obi-Wan sucks, turns out Ahsoka kinda sucks too!
Get suck, Yankee suck, Nick suck.
Whoa, holy shit, Jesus Christ, sorry. This is DS Lyons, and today we're going to break down not the worst, but at least the most disappointing movies of the year so far. These are the films that could have had it all. They could have been a total knockout, but took the path of least resistance instead. Here are the most disappointing films of the year, and boy, there's still quite a few months left of this one, folks, so if this video does well enough, I surely would love to do a follow-up around January.
Jeff, he's a screenwriter. He's writing it as he goes along.
So make sure you are liked and subscribed and booked and you're paying your mortgage to this channel, and we will do the thing where everyone ends up supporting each other. Hands around the world. Yeah, whatever, this movie sucked too. Also a disappointment. That's the theme. The theme is disappointments. And let's go.
Number 10.
In the seemingly unending sharkscape that has taken over both the big budget and low budget schlock markets for the better part of the past 20 or so years, or at least since Deep Blue Sea brought Jaws fever into the modern age, there have been good and bad shark movies. And The Meg, and now its sequel, The Meg 2, Meg Harder, are some of the bad ones. What brings The Meg 2, The Trench, onto this list is just the sheer audacity of a movie studio shelling out another $130 million to make a movie that somehow is even more bland, even more forgettable, and even more friggin' Chinese than the first. Yeah, you heard it right, I'm not trying to be a dick, but one of the 11 movies inside of this behemoth waste of digital space is the same kind of noble father, doting daughter, Chinese-funded military fable bullshit we've seen shoehorned into movies like Pacific Rim 2 and, oh my god, Independence Day 2. I'm all for international cinema, but whatever is going on with these Chinese-influenced mega blockbusters is clearly insidious and more about selling tickets than making actual art. This movie stunk ass. It had an hour and a half of dead weight in the center of it, and it really made me furious to think about how you could make a goddamn $100 million shark movie again
And fuck it up again.
I'll see you in court, yeah?
How to fix this one? Well, obviously, make it rated R. Try not giving every single set-piece moment away in the trailer, and slash the budget in half. The Chinese half of it. And just make a movie where Jason Statham fights a fucking gigantic shark, and that's it! It can have the blood of Piranha 3D on a shoestring budget, just like that movie did. I mean...
Excuse me, but is that a fucking piranha?
What are we doing here? Why does this suck so much? Why is it so boring? I mean, you could have made a $60 million banger here, and instead we have a movie that costs twice that and shit the bed twice as hard. Please, please no more Meg.
See you later, chum.
Number 9.
In the realm of wasted potential, 65, starring KYLO REN, took a prehistoric amount of cinematic resources and made them fucking extinct. By all metrics, this movie should have been an easy home run, with a $45 million budget and the star power of that complete sex freak ogre from Girls.
How sorry?
I'm really sorry.
Still, somehow, while this movie looks better than The Meg 2 on nearly half as many shekels, 65 is a dull, lifeless DOA mess that could have easily subbed in for a Redbox title if it were starring Frank Grillo instead of Supreme Leader Snoke's adopted boy.
Damn, boy, he's thick, boy!
There's seemingly no greater crime than wasting a dinosaur movie, even worse than a shark movie, because it's a genre that is still so small and niche that it has been easily dominated by a single franchise for over 25 years.
He saw a preview of the movie. It wasn't what he expected.
I was expecting a little child's movie. I mean, the little dinosaur kind that goes stomping across the screen and squishing people with yelling in the background. But this movie was not like that. It was a horror film.
Gay!
This movie made the cardinal sin of making dinosaurs look like bad and fucking stupid. I mean, what the hell is this thing? And making Adam Driver look bad, which is like a double whammy of a brutal waste that only a studio as soulless and depraved as Sony Pictures could dream up. This was like a Netflix-level movie at best that needed more depth, more character work, better creature designs, better CGI, better set pieces, and a better fucking title, my god.
I really hate you right now. I really hate you right now.
How would I have fixed this disaster? Well, redesign the creatures from the ground up, give the movie some actual stakes, and make the girl that KYLO is protecting his actual daughter. More importantly, kind of like The Meg, if you're going to make a movie as dry and boring as this, do yourself a favor and don't put every single creature, set piece, twist, and impactful moment from the film in the goddamn trailer. So many misses when it comes to 65, including an event in the third act of this film that happens merely as coincidence that may end up being one of the most contrived moments in any sci-fi movie from recent memory. One silver lining, if this is the best $50 million movie can do with its script, then I might be a shoo-in for writing the next Jurassic Park. We can all hope. Life will find a way. Jeff Goldblum.
Number 8.
You gotta be impressed with the Transformers series. The commitment to being average that this series has displayed for nearly 20 years would be admirable if it wasn't so damaging to society. Somehow, Palpatine has returned. Somehow they found a way to take one of the blandest series in the history of cinema and streamline it into something even more bland. Rise of the Beast has some compelling character work, I think, compared to this fucking maniac.
Watch the foot! No! Can you stop? Watch the foot! Watch your foot! Whoa!
And of course, the effects give off the appearance that they spared no expense, but ultimately, there is something so fiendishly forgettable, so breathtakingly average and milquetoast about Rise of the Beast that I can almost barely remember watching it. Instead of, God forbid, trying to reboot the series into something for someone with a functioning cerebral cortex, or God forbid, streamlining the series into something fun and actually digestible like Bumblebee was, Paramount has decided to quadruple down over their most abrasively nothing series by churning out another Transformers movie that doesn't even try to shirk the formula. Once again, we have a wayward youth getting lost up in a massive MacGuffin struggle between warring factions of CGI throw-up, going on a worldwide trek once again to save the world from the clutches of blah 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 before they activate the master key Witwiki John that will save us from blah 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 Cybertron blah blah.
It has more energy than a supernova. Any interruption will ignite it, like a bomb. The only way to stop this process is an access code installed long ago as a safeguard.
Okay, what's the code then?
The code was split, along with a key. Sadly, the second half of that code died with Air Razor.
No, wait, I got it. The one hiding right half of the key? That had markings in it. Just like the ones I found in the cave where you hid yours. Together, they must complete the access code. So we got a chance now, right?
A slim chance.
That is all we need.
Optimus Prime is a fucking psychopath in this movie.
This is my fault.
And once again, I just feel like nobody cares. Rise of the Beasts also makes the cardinal sin of stolen valor from the Beast Wars TV series, which somehow is better than the entire Transformers movie series, despite the fact that it was made on like a guy's computer in his mom's basement.
Loser.
This movie was a disgusting waste of space, and for once again setting fire to hundreds of millions of dollars, making the safest movie imaginable while charging full price for something we've seen before and better, Transformers Rise of the Beasts deserves to be on this list. How to fix this one? Just stop making these movies until you're man enough to set this fucker 30 years in the future, mostly in space, and casting Transformers as the lead characters for the first time in like 7 movies that are for some reason called Transformers. Until then, get me the fuck out of this series.
Number 7.
Not that there was much left to waste in the Insidious franchise, a series that should have ended after its first terrific entry, but The Red Door was a disappointment nonetheless. Patrick Wilson wastes his first shot in the director's chair by making a mostly scare-free, ruthlessly bland, ultimately forgettable Insidious film meant to cap off and finish a franchise that was instead left hobbled and begging for the sweet release of death. All props to Insidious creator James Wan, who instead of drowning his career in this series has gone on to make cracking blockbusters like Aquaman and the subversively terrific Malignant.
You gotta take chances, because if you don't, you end up making the same old thing again and again and again.
Which, if you haven't seen, is the fucking bomb. Further props go to Insidious writer and star Lee Wan-el, who also evolved into a fantastic filmmaker, with The Invisible Man and Upgrade being 2 of the most original, brutal genre films in recent memory. But what Wan and Wan-el have left behind is a headless chicken of a series that has somehow wandered off to the point of reintegrating the Lambert family from the first film after the series had shifted to Lin Shaye's character for a handful of piss-poor sequels. This movie wasted the opportunity to redeem this series to give a proper sequel to the first film and was a clear waste of Patrick Wilson's first crack at directing. The Red Door felt like a weird giallo film at a schmancy art school, like the same kind of setup as a film like Suspiria took, but without any edgy violence, vibrant colors, talent, or scares.
What are you doing?
Nothing. Me? Just hanging around.
Another bizarrely wasted franchise horror entry where everyone involved could have, and seems like they wanted to, just make something different and better.
Number 6.
Holy Officer Dewey's ghost, Batman! This movie was terrible! So, the last Scream movie, 5 Scream, touted itself as a requel of the Scream series, and in this film they declare that 6 Scream is the sequel to the requel, which not only makes me wonder what on earth they're gonna call 7 Scream, like the sequel to the requel to the requel to the end of the sequel requel trilogy, or the sequel to the requel trilogy Rises, but also the term requel to the sequel really illustrates how waywardly lost and overcooked the Scream series has become in terms of repetition and overall convolution at this point.
Who gives a fuck about movies?
This movie, much like Jason Takes Manhattan, fails to deliver on the juiciest and most advertised part of its premise, and that's taking a dying horror series to New York City. While Jason Takes Manhattan cheapskated its runtime by spending a large portion on the boat to New York, Scream 6, I guess, technically takes place in New York, but only if you're fucking dense enough to think that this movie wasn't just shot on indoor sets with every blessed moment of New York itself being replaced by green screen backdrops of the actual city. Not that I mind, I mean, I fucking hate New York as much as anyone could, but I wasn't the one pitching a Scream movie as Ghostface Takes Manhattan. That was you fuckers, not me. And what a fitting decision to then shoot this entire movie in Montreal, how truly authentic and not at all for some kind of massive tax break. Between this and the slightly better but dismal Scream 5 where they fucking killed King David Arquette, they have officially broken this series down into a lifeless, bland, and predictable slog. I guess people are hype on this and the last one because they up the brutality and kills, but after having seen Officer Dewey turned into a blood fountain in 5 and now this shit show, I really think it's just a bad read of the series to assume that what was missing here was more blood. That was never really the Scream series, and it didn't need to be because Wes Craven and Kevin Williamson Williamson were actually clever, actually self-aware of the genre enough to produce a product that, God forbid, asks you to use your brain and maybe even laugh a little. Now we're in like this dreary, depressing, post-Craven Scream world, and with Williamson MIA, we're left with a new generation of filmmakers tinkering with a series that they're either too young and dumb or simply too bloodthirsty to understand. The Scream series should be handled by seasoned horror veterans, whatever that may mean anymore, and for the love of everything holy,
why are we making Scream movies at all without Neve Campbell?
This woman is aged like a 42-year-old bottle of scotch, and the fact that the only legacy character left is this plasticine monster is simply reprehensible. Bring Sidney back. Give this series to somebody who actually gets Scream, or just leave the whole thing alone and let it die. It's probably what Ghostface would have wanted anyway.
Number 5.
Oh, Wes Anderson, we hardly knew ye. You were once a respected auteur, so full of promise and style, and seemingly wise beyond your years. But with every misstep, with every masturbatory foray into symmetrical navel-gazing that you force upon your fans...
And the guys who take, the one who takes this table comes from the same side as the table and takes it away, and the one who takes the chair comes from the same side as the chair and takes it away. Understood, got it?
You travel further from that initial promise. Just when I thought French Dispatch was a mature step back into some sort of grace, you go and double down on your absolute worst tendencies with this overly convoluted, immature, and outright exhausting experience that Asteroid City turns out to be. Never has a simple alien invasion paranoia yarn dressed itself up with so much self-obsessed swings at art that it's almost illegible as science fiction. Jordan Peele's Nope is a good comparison piece for this kind of experiment, and that film's more abstract, artistic moments kind of slow down the whole pace of things. And there's about 1/90th the amount of pretentious side quests in that film as there are here. As a sci-fi alien story, forget about it. As a Wes Anderson movie, Asteroid City is basically what a non-Wes Anderson fan would think that a Wes Anderson fan movie is. Pretentious, overwrought with a horrifyingly ugly color palette, and a literal excuse for a parade of famous actors to show up and say one line while winking.
Modern art? Modern art. Our specialty.
While this exact criticism has been levied at Anderson a handful of times, this is one of the few times where I feel like it really sticks. I mean, half-Jewish king Adrian Brody is truly, utterly wasted here, as is Willem Dafoe, and honestly, Tom Hanks and Edward Norton. And Jeff Goldblum. So yeah, wow, this was a movie that could have easily been fixed if it just honed in on the incredible work that Jason Schwartzman was doing here. And just like stripped away all the meta artifice, all the woe is me director and writer of art side commentary, and just delivered a quirky Anderson romp with aliens, paranoia, great child performances, a great setting, you know, basically what you had pitched in the trailer for this movie. Everything that wasn't in the initial trailer for this film ended up being an absolute slog, and it landed on this list of disappointments because, man, it just did not have to be this way. Anderson clearly had all the tools, all the visual flourishes, and surely all the actors to make something absolutely cracking here. And instead, he made something as stale, overlong, and inert as humanly possible. Thanks, Wes.
Number 4.
How did you fuck this up? Look at what they did to my boy! What had to happen to make such a fucking blandsicle here, guys? This is even more of a crime than the Meg 2 because it fails to deliver on such a belligerently rich premise. And for what? The loss of potential and the apogee of disappointment that is reached by wasting fucking Ray Liotta's last performance on this fucking shitberg is just beyond belief. They like fundamentally didn't even know how cocaine fucking worked in this movie. Like, how have we reached a point at a civilization where Hollywood writers don't even know what cocaine feels like? This is like if you took Tiger Woods out of whatever hospital he's probably in right now and put him literally 4 inches from the hole and asked him to just tap it Tap it the fuck in with the putter that you're most comfortable with, Tiger, in the entire world. And instead, he decides to hit it as hard as he can in the wrong direction. It's downright anarchy that they could not make this movie more wild or more cocained or more bared. If you want to make a bad movie, guys, you have to fucking commit to doing it. Forget all the character tropes, forget the set pieces and the plot lines, and just give us red-blooded Americans 2 hours of a bear going on a killing spree, driving a fucking monster truck around, doing fucking gaggers of Bolivian off a bunch of bear strippers, or make it like, I don't know, the fucking Country Bears. The youngest member of a bear family gets addicted to cocaine and goes out on an absolute killing spree in his bear community. I don't know, man. Figure out something, anything, and make a better movie than this. Or better yet, dudes, go fucking method. Do a bunch of fucking cocaine and sit around in a room and just spitball fucking hilarious business ideas with each other about this movie. Just give a bunch of pen-up Hollywood writers a kilo of that yellow schneef and get them a fucking whiteboard, and I guarantee you something will come out better than this. What a fucking waste. Elizabeth Banks, go away.
Number 3.
I guess when you make the central antagonist of your 3-hour slogfest a Dell 95 screensaver, you lose a little bit of the charm and gusto of the previous entry's villains in your franchise.
You don't think I'll do it? Where is it? Where the hell is it?
There's an overarching meta commentary that I can't get enough of while watching Mission Impossible DRPT.1, where Tom Cruise is like quite literally fending off the AI takeover that threatens his real-life livelihood as much as it now has become the final specter for Ethan Hunt. But what I couldn't abide by in this movie was the filmmaker's absolute audacity to swap out the terrific Rebecca Ferguson for the plucky and somewhat annoying Haley Atwell here.
Haley Atwell calls rumors about her and Mission Impossible co-star Tom Cruise, quote, upsetting.
Who is being shipped as Ethan's protege in a bizarre moment where the Impossible Mission Force reveals itself to be some kind of prisoner rehabilitation program instead of an elite strike force. Like, they reveal that Tom Cruise was offered a choice between prison or servitude, and he offers that same choice to Haley in this movie like he's fucking Morpheus. But like, why would the government design its most important impossible mission force tasked with combating the most devious and insidious criminals on Earth with people that could be barely trusted in the first place? It's not working out for the wrap-up on this series for me, and really it's become apparent that the stunts are leading the storytelling, and that's kind of sad as well. The best of the series doesn't exactly involve leaping off of shit just for jollies, and for me it's always been about the mystery, the intrigue of De Palma's classic mixed with the best technological advancements and gadgetry imaginable to make the impossible possible. There's nothing fucking impossible about jumping off a goddamn cliff on a motorcycle. It's just reckless and an irresponsible way to do your job. And if this movie series has finally reduced itself to just stunts, I mean, I can only be so impressed because half of the shots of these stunts are being ruined by composited CGI. Like this cliff jump scene in Fallout or the fucking digital CGI rainstorm they put over the Halo drop in the same film. In this movie, sure, Tom Cruise jumped a motorcycle off a cliff, but it was really off a humongous ramp that they then had to key out. And with some extra digital touches, and I'm sure some color correction as well, this shit just kind of ends up looking fake anyway.
It could actually function on a working railroad track. No one else in the world is doing this level of practical filmmaking, and it may never be done again.
All aboard!
It's a long way to go to produce something that doesn't feel authentic, and from a series that prides itself on its most tactile, clever, and daring elements, Dead Reckoning Part 1 is about as hollow, lifeless, and cold as its AI bad guy.
Number 2.
Most of the reactions that have ricocheted off the walls of the internet for this one seem to suggest that the newest Indiana Jones, or more aptly the newest Kathleen Kennedy Disney-forced abomination and the Dial of Regret, is a really bad movie with a really great opening 20 minutes. Praises have come in for the CGI replacement team over at the Disney Grindhouse factory for melting the years of alcohol abuse and regret out of Harrison Ford's face. Having now seen the movie myself with a level of close-up scrutiny, I'm going to go ahead and fucking refute that notion immediately! Because this bobble-headed freak giant bug human is not Indiana Jones, neither past nor present. This is a digital nightmare, ripped from the pages of the CGI Necronomicon. I was supposed to walk away from this movie thinking this was the best part? Has everybody just lost their minds? I mean, I guess you can argue, and surely the trailers argued, that this new realm of uncanny horrors has its moments of clarity. But when introduced to full motion cycles during large-scale CGI action beats, you basically have one layer of artificiality running into another layer of visual lies. That creates this wave of upsetting, inescapable, Gumby-faced horror that feels utterly unreal. Is there any better microcosm of the entire Disney Lucasfilm disaster than this heartless CGI plastered opening, where everyone, most likely the AI ghost of John Williams, Harrison Ford's digital Tupac hologram body, hundreds of millions of dollars of effects, are just giving everything they got to lie to you, to at best create a lie that is meant to, in this case, literally trick your brain into seeing Indiana Jones. It seems like it literally isn't enough anymore just to try to evoke the style, the universe, and the elements of what makes a great Indiana Jones movie. No, now we have to step into history itself to retcon a lie of this man's face and body onto the screen so that you simply can't deny that you're seeing the genuine article. I mean, unless you actually look at this piece of shit in action, my god. And man, the rest of this movie is a truly dominatingly ugly, boring, and repetitive fetch quest that ends in some laughable, dull, confusing, and sigh-inducing ways. Leave it to Kathleen and Co., the worst continuation of a once mighty brand, which is just a now celebrity-filled dilution of what you used to love into a horrible experience, a slow-moving drip. More about the quest to sell merch and ruin people's lives in an all-new generation because it didn't kill enough people in the 70s and 80s. Let the past die, guys. Kill it if you have to. Oh my god, Ryan was onto something. Anyway, god, what can be said about this movie that hasn't already been said about a movie like The Last Jedi? Everybody's sad, everything is an imitation, your heroes are once again fat and can't hold down a marriage. Somehow Palpatine returned, and made everyone miss even the shittiest part of the prequels. And now, with this movie, you literally have people standing for Shia LaBeouf's Mutt, a character who previously was respected less than Marfa-Lump, the Pepsi alien designed for Episode 1 ads.
Mr. Jar Jar Binks come for comic relief.
So yeah, good job, Disney Lucasfilm. You've re-killed Indy, you're killing Star Wars, and like our final upcoming film on this list, I kind of wish that your future was just in video games instead of movies and TV.
Number 1.
Alright, I'm sure this is going to be some massive problem for most of the people watching this video, so grin and bear it at the very least, and hear me out. I don't think this movie was particularly bad. I mean, I'm sure any kid could walk into the Mario Brothers movie with their parents, and they would have a great time. And while pleasing the whole family is admirable, I think it can be argued that of course a kid would love this movie, because a kid would love Super Mario Brothers, the game. And that's really all of what we got here, a movie-length produced cutscene from a game that you can't play. Utilizing the best moments, feelings, and iconography that would melt your heart while playing the best of the Mario series, but this time just kind of on screen forever. So if a Mario Brothers movie is just a distilled version of, in my opinion, the greatest series of games ever made, what's wrong with the movie itself?
They give an Oscar for worst actors? What'd I do?
For me, the problem with the Mario Brothers movie is not only the fact that the games simply are better and let you join in, but it's also that the precedent being currently set by this film is, for lack of a better term, dangerous. For many years, Hollywood tried adapting video games, and we know about how well that went. But most of the problems of early game adaptations came from greedy, non-video game playing movie studios grabbing up licenses and not having a clue what they were dealing with. Still, the idea was to combine what we love about movies with what we love about games. The results have always been a mixed to negative bag, sure, but the same terrible results were also being cranked out over superheroes at the same time as well. And with that genre, time and the advent of technology, as well as the nerd culture going mainstream, made it possible for people who loved comics to make comic book movies. And also, the movies themselves, being made by comic book fans, did create that bridge in the middle where they sacrificed elements of the comics to fit a cinematic world and found a beautiful synthesis that lasted for a long time until it fucking didn't. I wish that could have happened for games, that moment. But a movie like this, and especially its tremendous profit, will change franchise cinema for the next decade or more. And that's scary because they drop the what we love about movies part and seem to be just making movies of what we love about the actual game. While that sounds like a small hill or division to defend or die on, it's a line that truly matters, because as a consumer of Mario, I find more artistic merit and overall enjoyment playing something like Galaxy 2 instead of watching Chris Pratt half-ass voice a character that I can't interact with.
Mario, seriously? What were you thinking?
What the blood-sucking corporate overlords who produced this thing realized is that for too long, cinema had to stoop to become a video game. And now they've cut the middleman and just kind of declared a video game is a movie. It's a subtle shift, but one that will not go unnoticed in this vast capitalist wasteland that movies spring from. So expect a ton more of video game movies, but ones unwilling to take risks of any kind. Expect your favorite game, God knows it could be Zelda next, turned into a sterile 2-hour mashup of its best levels, packed to the brim with celebrity voice talent regardless if it makes a lick of fucking sense with the character. The Mario Brothers movie was probably a colorful, humorous delight to many, but to me it's the harbinger of dark and twisted trends to come, and a final recognition that Hollywood has given up trying to make movies out of games, and has opted for using the advance in technology to simply recreate games, instead of honoring them through some kind of story or theme or callback. It's a weird and soulless middle ground that we've arrived at here, and one that is sure to produce acceptably faithful but entirely soulless adaptations for generations to come. And that's it. That is my Mount Everest of cinematic sadness for the year 2023. And again, this is only the first half of the year we're looking at, folks. We still have plenty of nightmares left to show you. From Wonka to The Marvels to Saw X to The Exorcist Believer to the Hunger Games prequel to Aquaman 2 to Zack Snyder's newest abomination. I mean, it's going to be a long time coming, folks, so strap in. The disappointment has just begun.